I bought this house on the golf course 3 years ago for $1,000. Now this has been one of the craziest deals I've ever done, so I'm gonna show you the inside of the house and how exactly I got it. All right, so as you can tell, this house is currently under construction. I had to actually kick out the contractor so that I could film this video. We're going to be listing this home for $700,000 to $750,000. We're not sure yet, but this house has an interesting backstory on how I got it for $1,000. All right, so here's the story. Back in 2018, we were doing some direct to seller marketing. In this case, we were cold calling, and we get this seller who says, hey, I own this property that's on the golf course. It's got a pool, it's super nice, right here in Spanish Trails, which is a really nice neighborhood in Las Vegas. And she said, I am in foreclosure because I haven't paid my my property taxes. I haven't paid the HOA. And so I'm behind on all that. I think she was behind around $10,000. And she said, I don't even want the house anymore. I'm just gonna let it go into foreclosure. And I said, no, don't do that. Like, we'll definitely buy it from you. In fact, we'll just take over your mortgage if you're gonna do that. If we take over your mortgage and we, go pay up the HOA and the taxes, then we essentially get a house for very little. And she said, that's fine. You could just take over the mortgage. And we said, well, we don't want to just have you walk away with nothing. We'll just give you $1,000 then. And she said, great, I'll take $1,000. And that's the short story of how we got this deal. But there's a lot of other elements to this deal that made it pretty much one of my most unique deals we've ever done. So this deal would have been what's called a subject to deal. So meaning we are taking over this property subject to the existing mortgage. So whatever their mortgage ends up being, we are now going to take over those payments and just pretty much title the property over to ourselves, but not pay off the loan. I've done this on many other properties. It's worked out just fine. It's how I own a few of my other rentals here in Las Vegas. I've just pretty much kept their loan in place. I didn't have to get one with my own name, and I pretty much pay the seller the difference between what they owe and what we agree on. So in this case, we said, okay, we're just gonna pay you $1,000 over what you owe. Now, we didn't know what she owed because we hadn't got a payoff yet, and all we knew was she was behind on her payments. Well, that was when she threw us a little curveball for all you baseball people. She said that she had a reverse mortgage. And so a reverse mortgage really complicates things because unlike other mortgages where you might have 30 years and that it's just gonna keep getting paid down every month, a reverse mortgage actually works the opposite way. There are multiple ways that reverse mortgages happen. One scenario is instead of the amount you owe going down each month as you make your payments, the amount you owe actually goes up. Because what many of these reverse mortgage people do is get monthly payments from their loans. So maybe they only owe $200,000 on their house, and all of a sudden their bank with the reverse mortgage is now giving them $1,000 a month. And so every time they give them $1,000 a month, it just keeps going up and up and up. And so eventually they're gonna owe $400,000 instead of two. It works the exact opposite. That's why it's called a reverse mortgage. But there are other forms of reverse mortgages too. They structure these in so many different ways, but the way that this one was set up was the seller, when she got that reverse mortgage, got a whole lump sum up front. I don't know how much they gave her up front, but basically they said, you take the lump sum, we're not gonna be paying you monthly. Each and every month your mortgage is gonna go up, and from there, all you have to do is pay the HOA and the property taxes. So for us, it was kind of an interesting deal because on one hand, we weren't gonna have a mortgage payment. So if we were to rent this, we could cash flow and make good money. And on the other hand, it meant like it's not really a long-term play for us because we're never gonna pay it down. And if the mortgage is constantly going up every day that we owe, then it's kind of tough to ever really make a profit on this. So nonetheless, I was cool with it because for one, how many properties on the golf course can you get for $1,000, And I just said, well, it's really hard to lose. If we just give her $1,000, we take over her reverse mortgage, whatever happens, happens. We can definitely cash flow this house and just make money every single month. And if it ends up being better than we thought, great. If it ends up getting foreclosed on because they figure out that we took over her reverse mortgage and it's against the rules, then so be it. What are we gonna do? And by the way, when I say against the rules, there's something in every mortgage called the due on sale clause. Essentially what the due on sale clause says is that this mortgage is due whenever you sell it. And so technically, anybody who takes over someone else's loan, the bank has the right to call that loan due, meaning that we owe the money right then and there. And that could happen on any of the rentals that I currently own where their mortgages are not in my name, but the title's in my name. It could have happened on this home at any point of owning it the last 3+ years. I've personally never had it happen, but when I say it's against the rules, those are gonna be in every single loan for the most part. So just be aware of that whenever you see people talking about subject to or creative finance, that is a risk. But for me, it was a risk I was willing to take because I thought the risk was pretty small. We were only gonna put $1,000 to the seller, and then eventually we were gonna decide whether or not we wanted to pay the HOA and the taxes. For us, we didn't have to pay them right away. We had time, we could decide whether or not we were gonna flip this thing, whether we were gonna sell it to somebody else and wholesale it. All we knew was, let's just buy it for $1,000, and then from there, we'll figure out the rest later. Now, when I purchased the home, it already had 2 tenants in it. And the tenants knew that I was buying it and that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. At the time, we didn't really even know how much she owed on it. All we knew was she didn't have a mortgage, and we weren't able to get all of the exact paperwork of what was going on with their loan. But one thing we did get was a borrower's authorization. So anytime you take over someone's loan, you wanna make sure you get a borrower's authorization so that you're able to talk to the bank, okay? That is key number 1 whenever you do this. We bought the house from her. We end up having these tenants in here. They're paying a little bit of rent. And sure enough, after buying it, they decide that they wanna leave. Well, we said, all right, let's go inside and see what we wanna do. Knowing that this may or may not be a long-term property, we said, let's just keep all the original stuff and try to re-rent it. As we go to rent it, we realized that you can't really just go rent homes in this gated community. You have to apply to get on this waiting list that's like years long. And so now it kind of screwed up our plan because, on one hand, we still have to go make these property tax and HOA payments, even though we don't have a mortgage. But on the other hand, we can't really rent it and cash flow like we thought. Before I tell you the rest of the story, if you haven't heard, we launched a brand new YouTube channel called Future Flipper. And that channel is strictly just real estate investing. So if you're trying to learn how to flip, you're trying to learn how to wholesale, buy rentals, Airbnbs, make sure you're subscribed to that channel because it is 100% real estate and we're releasing videos daily. So go make sure you subscribe. And so we went back to the bank and we said, hey, how much does she owe? If we want to go and flip it. And we found out that she owed around like $400,000 at the time, and it was increasing by $1,000 like every month. And at the time of buying this in 2018, the house itself was probably worth around that, 400 to 450. And so I said, man, we're not really gonna make much flipping this, so we might as well just, pretty much ride it out until something happens. And as it turned out, during this time, my COO, Sean Bob, who wasn't even the COO of the company at the time, was getting ready to move out of his house. And he said, you know what? I'll live on the golf course, like give me a sweet deal on it and I'll rent this thing from you and just put me on the LLC and I'm not a tenant anymore. And I said, okay. So we put Sean Bob on the LLC in order to circumvent the rules because he's not a tenant now, he's an owner. And he was paying like $1,600 a month to rent this thing, which, for a house on the golf course is extremely cheap. And for me, the taxes and the HOA fees on this house combined to be $800 a month. So I was cash flowing pretty good with Sean Bob, making $800 a month. And he got to live in a sweet house on the golf course until he was able to find his next house. But all in all, he lived here for probably almost 2 years, I would guess. He lived here a long time. Enjoying it. And also, side note, as you can see here in this master, he did not have this bathroom. We recently just did that and we're finishing up the tub. He had all original. Now, once Sean Bob moved out of here because he found his other house that he lives in now, we had to figure out what we're gonna do. Were we gonna flip it? We're gonna try and rent it out again in a, I guess, strategic way. And then as it turns out, we were like, you know what? There's still not enough room to flip it. The market's still not where we need it. So I'm just gonna rent it to whoever I know, like that's my homie, right? I can't go rent this to somebody else because it's got like this weird thing going on with the HOA and stuff and everything else. So one of my editors actually had his in-laws who needed a place to stay. And I said, hey, if you wanna stay here, here's what's going on. Technically, we're not supposed to rent it out, but you know, they can go move in, I don't care. They can stay there as long as they can, but just, they need to realize that they may end up getting kicked out by the HOA at some point. As long as they're cool with that, I'll give them a great deal on rent. And so his in-laws moved in. And I think within a month of moving in, the HOA got really mad, as kind of predicted, and they started fining us. And the fine ended up being $100 a week. And I looked at it and I said, can they do anything beyond this fine, or is this like the max fine? They said, nope, this is the max fine, it's $100 a week. And I said, so basically now my taxes, my HOA, and my fines are $1,200 a month, but they're paying me $1,600, so I'm all right with it, you know? At some point, if you're gonna break the rules, you just have to understand the consequences, and if you're okay with the consequences, then so be it. And I was fine with $100 a week, even though it's kind of a joke, because they were good tenants, and you know, it's why partly I don't really like HOAs, because of dumb rules. So they ended up living here about a year. And during the year, I just told them, I said, hey, at some point we might sell it, just depending on if the market ever heats up and we're able to, you know, make a big profit on it. And sure enough, obviously we all know the market heated up really big, and it was worth a lot more than it was in 2018. In fact, as I was saying earlier, I think this thing's gonna be worth $700 to $750 when we put it on the market. And over time, we had realized that the reverse mortgage actually stopped going up. We didn't know this when we bought it, but we found out years later that it had capped at $450. So even though it was $400 when we bought it and it was going up every year, and we saw it go to $450, and we were like, yeah, this thing's never gonna get paid off because it's just going up, it actually stopped. And so we only owe $450 on this house now, and it's worth $700 to $750. Also, before I, you know, keep going on with the story, I gotta tell you about this. So this room, I'll call it, actually is a closet. This was a closet for the second bedroom. This house is just a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And we said, you know what? Sean Bob, when he was living here, he actually contemplated buying it from me. He said, if I ever buy it, I need a 3rd bedroom, so I would just convert that closet to a bedroom. And so by the time we went to flip this, he already knew exactly what he wanted to do with the house, and we turned this very tiny closet into, like actually this very big closet into a very tiny bedroom. And I don't know that you could even call it a bedroom, but it has everything you need to classify a bedroom, with a closet and a window. So in my mind, it's a bedroom, regardless of what the haters say. But as you can see here in the bathroom, you know, renovating it, making it look really good. You've got that secondary bedroom over there, and you know, overall, as a flip, it's gonna be a really nice house. You've got a 3-bedroom now, you've got a 2-bath, the kitchen's looking good, it's in a great community. I didn't even show you the outside. Let's go check that out. Obviously, one of the big selling points with this home is you've got this really nice pool over here, and then you're on the golf course. Like, you guys know I'm really into golf now. I was actually golfing out here about 2 weeks ago, and I was looking for the house because I hadn't been here in years. I was like, where is that house? I remember it. But I mean, it's just crazy to have had all of this happen because I paid somebody $1,000 3.5 years ago. You know, and now we're looking at, if we owe $450 on this home, and if we potentially get $750, you know, that's 300 grand coming my way, minus, you know, all the fees. I mean, that's not profit. In fact, it's really hard to figure out what the actual profit is on this deal because it's just been so weird. Like, I ended up eventually paying off those tax liens and that HOA. It was like $10,000. You know, we're renovating the house and, you know, putting a good amount of money into there. And, you know, I've cash flowed all these different years with it, but I would guess in the grand scheme of things, this house is gonna make over $200,000, you know, when you account for everything that's happened. Plus, we don't have to pay short-term capital gains. You know, we've owned it for 3 years, we get long-term capital gains. So in the end, a lot of people would have looked at this deal and said, I mean, you got a reverse mortgage. We can't do anything. It's going up every month, or they would have said, she owes too much, right? At the time she sold it to us, she owed $400,000. It's worth $400,000. And they said, why would we take this? She's in foreclosure, something's gonna happen, and the mortgage is going up. But we said, you know what? It's really hard to lose buying a house on the golf course for $1,000. And so that was really all I thought about when I bought it. In my mind, the worst case scenario was I just rent it out until something happens. The bank calls it due, anything, like, I don't know. But I just felt like the worst case scenario wasn't bad. And the best case scenario is kind of what we're going through now, where the market's gone crazy and we've got a lot of equity in it. So yeah, this has turned out to be a really sweet deal, a very creative deal. And that's one of the funner parts of real estate is there are so many ways to make a deal if the seller wants to sell their home. You just have to know the right things and how to be creative and really how to make it a win-win for everybody. So if you want to learn how to flip houses like this, if you want to join thousands of students who are part of our community at Future Flipper, super easy. Just go to futureflipper.com. You can apply for a free consultation with my team. You can be coached directly by me. You can attend our events. It's really cool. We have a great community, and everyone else is flipping houses just like this one. Maybe not as crazy of a deal as this one, but they know how to do this stuff because we train them. So if that sounds like something you want to do, make sure you do it. And also make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you can catch the next one. See ya.